pretty funny.
You know, ever heard of the thing East potato?
No, I don't know what that is.
That's a Colbert. Colbert makes
Oh,
used to make jokes about it. You know,
oh, wow.
it's like a running joke, you know. Here, I was just looking at it, you know. It's really funny. That's why I bought this shirt.
Mhm.
Look at this. Uh, I want to share this. This is relevant because, you know, I really feel bad. I'm devastated that you know all these late night shows are going to be canceled, you know. And they're practically the only way to get messages through nowadays. Even John Lennon said it,
Yeah,
it's cute humor. And so
yeah.
that's why the
Comedies helps you cope.
comedians are the first ones to go in an authoritarian regime, you know.
Yeah, it's a coping mechanism for
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, well, it actually, you know, also Pete Seeger said, you know, if you present something through music, that's also a good way so people won't get so upset. It's like entertainment. Listen to
Yeah.
this. Here's the East potato.
For those Russian people. They just wanted to go and buy Russia's hottest toy, Mr. Actual Potato. Mhm. Is potato. The economy has got so bad in Russia, some supermarkets are even limiting the amount of flour and sugar. Wow. I didn't hear that. Stuff on the Great Russian Bake Off. My signature bake today is delicious brownies, well, or potato, and brown is potato. Wow. Next year's Russian Halloween is going to be even more dismal than usual. Trick or treat, yay, is potato. It's pretty good. That's actually their most popular ice cream truck, Mr. Onion. Round and round the onion truck, a big bag full of onions. Take a bite and never smile. Oops, is potato. In his, there you go. Is potato. Yeah, is potato. Okay, sweeping the country. Got to dance and everything. And they can watch the popular Russian state children's program, Peppa Potato. We all know her catchphrase. Say it with me. The world. Everybody knows it. It's a hot. Everybody loves that one. Everybody loves it. They're so Russian. They've even updated the slogan to better ingredients, better pizza. Just kidding, is potato. The no. Wow.
That's just a sample. He used to do this like every night, you know, like,
Mhm.
especially when the Russian Ukrainian war began. But anyway, yeah,
Ugh.
he's it's a great loss. I mean, for the entertainment. That's
Well,
what.
I think that what's happening is that people are going on to independent stations like Ben Mieslis, a Midas Touch, and I'm sure like he'll probably. I mean, this Conan O'Brien got shafted by several of the networks a couple of times, and finally left TBS and then started, producing his own shows through HBO and other. I mean, there's so many other forums.
You know, that's streaming though. It's not reaching the audience. The network share on regular broadcast television is huge. I mean,
Yeah.
also, what's her name? Samantha Bee. She had that full frontal that was canceled. And
Mhm.
now because Skydance is purchasing Paramount, Jon Stewart's worried about his Daily Show.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I just,
Daily Show is so good. I mean, you know, my neighbor, he said Jon Stewart, he's full of shit. So I don't know what he's listening to. He's an intelligent guy. But you know, anybody that says Jon Stewart's full of shit is full of shit himself.
yeah, I love Jon
Because
Stewart.
he's awesome.
Jon
I've been
Stewart.
listening to him ever since he one time he was on this thing called no, what was it? It's called Crossfire.
Mhm.
And Bagala and Tucker Carlson, when he used to wear
The bow tie.
the little bow tie, they were on there and they would argue. And Bagala was playing the
Oh, geez, I'm
Democrat,
sorry.
and and
Sorry.
Tucker Carlson would play. And Jon Stewart, he said, why are you ruining America?
Uh-huh.
Why don't you just stop? And then, he ripped Tucker Carlson a new one. He just like so strong. And they canceled that show because Jon Stewart. He ripped him a new one, man. And of course, Tucker Carlson is huge, still huge.
Mhm.
But some things never die. But you need people like that can tell the truth and stand up to these guys. Is there a doggy in the background there?
No, I don't have it.
Oh,
I
this
don't
is
have
in
any
my
pets.
house. This is my house. Anyway, let's start reading here. I don't think uh Hemang's gonna come. Um and I don't know about Alyssa, but I think we're at this sentence right here. I'll just go ahead and read this. There is another evidence from the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 22nd chapter, verse 39, wherein Sanat Kumar says, quote, "My dear king, the false ego of the human being is so strong that it keeps him in material existence as if tied up by a strong rope. Only the devotees can cut the knot of this strong rope very easily by engaging themselves in Krishna consciousness. Others who are not Krishna conscious, but who are trying to become great mystics or great ritual performers, cannot advance like the devotees. Therefore, it is the duty of everyone to engage himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness in order to be freed from the tight knot of false ego and engagement in material activities." That's actually a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, tight knot. It's called there's a very famous string of verses from the second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is very famous. It's just like encapsulates the entire Krishna conscious philosophy in a nutshell. And you know, I used to enjoy listening to this one devotee who actually became temple president in New Vrindavan back in the 80s. His name was Devamrita-swami. He's a guru now. He lives in New Zealand. But he was listening to my spiritual master's tapes when he used to preach behind the Iron Curtain back in the 80s,
Oh,
in like the Romania and those countries.
jeez.
And but he was listening to his tapes and he said, "Oh my God, this is really powerful." And he said, something's going to happen to this guy. And of course, something did, of course. Uh, he got thrown out of ISKCON. He was just preaching too strongly. But he would give lectures and I would transcribe his lectures and I put them into a book and I named the book "Cutting the Knot of Material Existence." And I went up to Vermont and had it printed to like only about 12 copies, and I distributed all those books to the Sankirtan devotees in New Vrindavan. So that's a common phrase. Hridaya Granti. Hridaya means heart, and Granti means knot. Especially sex life, the knot in the heart of between man and woman is like a hard knot, and it has to be cut by the sadhu. Sadhu is kind of like a knife, and only the devotees can cut that knot. And otherwise, we're just like, tied up in this material world with our relations and our friends and our extended relations and the knot of our ego and our engagement in fruitive activities. Anyway, you can read the next sentence here, this one.
This tight knot of false egos due to ignorance. As long as one is ignorant about his identity, he is sure to act wrongly, thereby become entangled in material contamination. This ignorance of factual knowledge can can also be dissipated by Krishna consciousness, as is confirmed in the Padma Purana as follows. Pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the highest enlightenment. And when such enlightenment is there, it is just like a blazing forest fire, killing all the inauspicious snakes of desire. Huh. I just saw a snake today. That's funny. Um, where was I? Oh yeah. The example is being given in this connection that when there's a forest fire, the extensive blazing automatically kills all the snakes in the forest. There are many, many snakes on the ground of the forest, and when a fire takes place, it burns the dried foliage, and the snakes are immediately attacked. Animals who have four legs can flee from the fire, or can at least try to flee, but the snakes are immediately killed. Similarly, the blazing of fire, Krishna consciousness is so strong that the snakes of ignorance are immediately killed. That's so weird. I just saw a snake today.
What's that?
I just saw a snake today on my
Was
walk.
it poisonous?
Car. Huh?
Was it like a dangerous one? Did you see?
No, they're not. Most of them aren't dangerous here.
Most of them aren't dangerous, but snakes are kind of envious, Um, it's actually okay if a sadhu kills a snake, like a poisonous snake, because the snake will bite you. It's an envious living entity, and it will bite you, you know.
It's the year of the snake, Chinese zodiac, year of the snake.
Yeah, yeah. I think Alyssa was had a t-shirt with that on it. The
Oh,
year,
well.
yeah. Um, but snakes are envy. They signify enviousness, and also human beings are even actually worse than snakes because
Huh,
you can actually tame a snake through
yeah.
mantras, herbal charming techniques, but you can't cure a human being because they use their intelligence to become envious, and so they're actually you know incurable. Like
Mhm.
Chanakya Pandit said, in order to 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 make an envious person into a devotee, it's like trying to straighten out a dog's tail. In India, they have these dogs that run around it. Have you ever been to India?
No.
Well, they have dogs there that they're all kind of like all the street dogs. They have these curly tails that go up like that. And Shanika Pandit said to make an envious man into a good man, it's like trying to straighten out the tail of a dog.
Yeah.
Just pops right back up again and makes it curled again. And then he also said that in order to make you can't make an envious person or a non-devotee into a good person, uh, as much as no matter how much you scrub your ass, it won't turn into a face. So Chanika Pandit was like a king's advisor, was very intelligent Brahmana. He would discuss with the king all these different political and advise the king like that. But he didn't live in the kingdom. He lived a little bit outside the kingdom, so they could get away with stuff. He wouldn't be punished if he said something bad. So that's why I don't live in New Vrindavan because I don't want to be that close to the fire. Because there's some management issues in New Vrindavan that I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah, it kind of sucks, but
It's a
yeah,
wonderful place and it's Prabhupada's beautiful creation, my
right.
spiritual creation, but I don't think it's being managed properly, to tell you the
Hmm.
truth. There's kind of an authoritarian bent to all the stuff that goes on there, and half the
Yeah.
devotees really interested in what's going on in the world. They're just living in their little tiny, bubble.
Hmm.
They don't really care about a devotee actually really cares about what's going on in the world. And it says in one of the cantos of Bhagavatam that when they killed King Vena, Vena was this bad king. He was horrible, and he stopped all the sacrifices of the brahmanas, and he was harassing the people, and he thought he was God. And so the brahmanas got together and they tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't listen, and so the brahmanas killed him. They didn't even use any weapons. They just used like high sounding words and cursed him, and he died. But then all these bad people started coming up, with all the rogues and thieves that started looting and pillaging the kingdom. And the Brahmanas thought to themselves, the Brahmanas, they don't really get involved in, like management of the government and or political things like that. But when the people are suffering, you have to get involved. And so it's otherwise all your Brahminical power, your tejas, what they call tejas, it's Brahminical power. It's coming from Krishna. If you don't take care of people and the people are suffering, then it's like a cracked pot, and all of the water in the pot just runs out. All your spiritual power runs out. And so you have to take care of the people because he doesn't want people to suffer. That's his great suffering. Krishna wants everybody to come back to him. And the duty of the devotees, especially the brahmanas, is to preach to the people to bring them back to Krishna consciousness. They don't really care. I mean, but just like it says here in the example of the fire, it kills all the snakes. Also, there's another example of the rain. The rain. We sing that song every morning, Samsara Davanali Loka Tanaya Karanaganaganathvam, which not Avarana means ocean, and the cloud brings the water from the ocean and it pours it on the land. And so you can't stop the forest fire of material existence with your tiny, tiny water brigade or your faucet water. What's that going to do? Nothing. But to put out a forest fire, you need the cloud, the big dark cloud. And so Krishna consciousness is like a cloud and it pours water from the ocean. It comes from Krishna. All this knowledge is coming from Krishna. And it pours it down without any discrimination. And nobody's asking for it, but the spiritual master, because he's ordered by his spiritual master to come here and distribute this mercy to all the living entities, he obeys his spiritual master and he fulfills the desire of Krishna to bring the living entities who are suffering in this material world back to Godhead. And they're not asking for it. When Prabhupada came here, they weren't asking for knowledge. They were happy. But Prabhupada came here with all this knowledge and this cultural revolution in order to bring people back to Krishna's lotus feet. And, he had a whole culture, like the Indian culture, the spiritual culture, the Bhagavatam and everything. What did the hippies have back then? Rock and roll, drugs, blue jeans, and suicide. That was it.
Yeah.
You know. So, like they weren't asking for Prabhupada to do that, but just like the water pours on the rock ocean, and the ocean doesn't need the water, and the mountains, they don't need the water. It's only on the fertile land that the water has any effect. But it doesn't matter. The ocean, the cloud pours water everywhere. And so that's like the pure devotee. A pure devotee comes, and just like it says in the previous verse here, Krishna consciousness can cut the knot of material existence. It can free one from all of your bad knots of attachment in this material world. And it doesn't discriminate. So with that, if you're a devotee, if you're a pure devotee, you can actually distribute this knowledge because it's coming from Krishna, and Krishna doesn't change it. It's always the same. All this knowledge that we're reading about right now is the same. Even when Lord Chaitanya came, Krishna explained the Bhagavad Gita 5,000 years ago, and he didn't make it up. I mean, he said the same thing. It's like the same old knowledge, that he spoke to the sun god hundreds of millions of years before. But when Lord Chaitanya came, he didn't change anything. It's the same knowledge that Krishna has given. And Lord Chaitanya just ordered everybody, you become guru. Guru, Amaragana Guru Hanatara Edesh. You become guru and try to liberate everyone in this land. Just teach everybody the words of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and try to deliver everyone. That was his order. So on his order, that's why we're reading these things, because it's the order of Lord Chaitanya. And if we do that, and if we're empowered by Lord Chaitanya, we can distribute this knowledge. Only someone who is completely surrendered to this knowledge and doesn't change it a bit. Prabhupada said, I haven't changed anything. I'm not manufacturing anything. It's the same knowledge. So if we repeat it as it is, that's why Prabhupada named his book, the Bhagavad Gita, as it is. He hasn't changed anything. And other books have, the Bhagavad Gita has so many editions. Very famous book, but none of them had any effect because Prabhupada was connected, and everybody had their own spin on it. Like Gandhi and Dr. Radhakrishna and all these different gurus, they would put their own spin on the knowledge coming from Krishna. No, just take the knowledge as it is and repeat it as it is. You don't have to change anything. It's just the same. It's perfect. Otherwise, you're warping it for your own, you know, purposes, and it's actually an offense to change anything that Krishna says. Why write your own book? Don't twist Krishna's knowledge to make to fit your own agenda. So it's really important to understand that we can't put our own spin or interpretation on any of this knowledge. It's coming down in disciplic succession, and it's exactly the same. No change. So Krishna consciousness is all auspicious. Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī has given it a definition of auspiciousness. He says that actual auspiciousness means welfare activities for all the people of the world. At the present moment, groups of people are engaged in welfare activities in terms of community, society, community, or nation. There is even an attempt to form the United Nations for world help activity. Prabhupada he really bashed. I was reading in a book today, when Prabhupada was in New Vrindavan. I'm reading a whole chapter. It's about 5 hours long. When Prabhupada visited New Vrindavan in 1976, it's called Transcendental Diary, and I'm reading that book right now. It's really nectar, and he challenges the devotees. He says the United Nations is like a bunch of barking dogs. They have so many flags. They have no common cause, and so they're each working for their own national interest, and they're always fighting with each other. So it hasn't improved anything. You can't improve, the world by your so-called material adjustments. So the number of flags has increased since the United Nations was formed like 70 years ago. And all they're doing is what's fighting like cats and dogs. And he said, anybody that's not a devotee, they're a fool, they're a rascal, their knowledge is stolen by illusion, and they have demonic activity. And we have to present that. And if you actually present that for the general mass of people, then they'll have a peace solution. They'll understand that Krishna is the actual friend of every living entity. He's the supreme proprietor of every living entity. And if people had that common cause, then there'd be peace in the world. But it's not going to happen with all this, limited or extended interest in one's own nation or society or any kind of welfare activities for the general mass of people. It's not possible. Krishna consciousness, however, is also so nice that it can render the highest benefit for the entire human race. Everyone can be attracted by this movement. Everyone can feel the result. Therefore, Rupa Goswami and other learned scholars agree that a broad propaganda campaign program for the Krishna conscious movement of devotional service all over the world is the highest humanitarian welfare activity. I mean, it also, Prabhupada said it's also the highest welfare activity because it can get you out of the material world. Material world, people are suffering four things: birth, death, old age, and disease. He said, we can stop your birth, death, old age, and disease. This is the highest welfare activity to the human society. So, you know, therefore people should take it. And devotee doesn't even care if he's in the material world or not, but he's only engaged in serving Krishna's will to actually extricate everyone from this material tabernacle so that they can go back to Godhead and be happy. That Lord Chaitanya just wants everybody to be happy. I'll read the next two paragraphs, starting with how the Krishna consciousness movement.
Devotional service and full Krishna consciousness is to be understood to be doing the best service to the whole world and to be pleasing everyone in the world. In addition to human society, he is pleasing even the trees and animals because they also become attracted by such a movement. A practical example of this was shown by Lord Chaitanya when he was traveling through the forests of Jharkhanda, Jharkhanda in central India for spreading his Sankirtana movement. The tigers, the elephants, the deers, and all the other wild animals joined him when were participating in their own ways by dancing and chanting Hare Krishna. Furthermore, a person engaged in Krishna consciousness acting devotional service can develop all the good qualities are generally found in the demigods. It is said by Sukadeva Goswami in the fifth canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, 18th chapter, verse 12. My dear king, persons who have unflinching faith in Krishna and are without any duplicity can develop all the good qualities of demigods. On account of a devotee's high grade of Krishna consciousness, even the demigods like to live with him, and therefore it can be understood that the qualities of demigods have developed within his body.
Yeah, have you heard of that pastime of Lord Chaitanya? He walked all the way across India, all the way to the tip of India when he was only a young man. I mean, he took sannyas when he was 24 years old. He left his old mother and he had a
Mhm.
young wife and he left them both.
Wow.
And he just started traveling and preaching to
Wow.
starting his Sankirtan movement. And he was so powerful, though, he could even, like, he was walking in a dangerous jungle and he would tell the animals, you chant Hare Krishna, and the elephants would start bellowing, and the deer and the tigers would start in their own way, standing up on their hind legs and dancing and chanting, and the deer and the lions they're normally inimical to each other. The deer are terrified of the lions. They would start dancing around and they would start kissing each other. So that's and Lord Chaitanya just smiled because this is the power. And of course we can't do that. We can't tell hey, Mr. Lion, go chant Hare Krishna. He'll eat you if you do that. But Lord Chaitanya can do that. So even the animals can participate in the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra. I've seen it. I saw this one video of a dog. The devotees were out and chanting in the streets, and this dog was going nuts. It was like twirling around and around. You can see
Mhm.
that it was affected by the chanting because it actually touches the soul of a living entity. And that's the way that all living entities, not only human beings, but animals, trees, plants, everything can be delivered from Krishna consciousness. Uh, you know, um, there's a pastime where Lord Chaitanya was going to the Rath Yatra. Uh, he used to go every year from um, well, I mean that he was living in Jagannath Puri at the time. That's where the Rath Yatra. But all the devotees would be from all over Bengal would come to every year to see Lord Chaitanya and visit him during the Rath Yatra. And so Sivananda Sain was like the head guy that was in charge of all the devotees traveling all across India on pilgrimage to the Rath Yatra festival. And he would make arrangements for their sleeping and eating and everything. And he would have to pay the boatman to cross the rivers because you can't like cross the river unless you have a boat, and so he'd have to pay. And so there's this dog. Here's another example of how animals can become even benefited by this Hare Krishna movement. This dog befriended. He started following the devotees, and Sivananda Sain became a little attached to this dog, and he would feed it every day, and the dog followed the devotees. And one time he was engaged, and he wanted the dog to come with them the whole way. And the boatman one time he didn't allow the dog to be on the boat, and so Shivananda Sain paid the boatman extra to get the dog on the boat. And so next time they crossed, they were making arrangements to for some lodging or whatever. And Shivananda Sain was engaged in a different thing, and he told the devotees to feed the dog. And the devotees didn't feed the dog. They forgot, and the dog took off, and they couldn't find the dog. And so Shivananda Sain was very upset, and he said, because he was kind of attached to this dog now, and the devotees went. He sent some devotees to look for the dog, and they couldn't find him. And so Shivananda Sain, who's a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, was arranging for all this passage throughout India. He decided if the dog is not going to eat and he's not here, I'm going to fast. He fasted. He himself fasted because the dog was gone.
Hmm.
just as a kind of like, because he was attached to the dog. And so they went on and they eventually reached Jagannath Puri, and there was Lord Chaitanya sitting there along with his devotees in the room, and there was a dog. The dog was there, and Lord Chaitanya was feeding some green coconut pulp to the dog, and he told the dog to chant, and the dog, in his own way, was "Rah, rah, rah, Hare Krishna," and so, and so the as soon as Sivananda Sain saw that dog taking prasadam from Lord Chaitanya's hand and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, he paid obeisances to the dog.
Hmm.
And you know what happened to the dog? They couldn't find him the next day because he went back to Godhead,
No.
disappeared from the planet. He went back to the spiritual world. So that's the power of the association of devotees. If you get the association of devotees, and if you take prasadam, you chant Hare Krishna, you could be a dirty, mangy dog that doesn't know anything about the philosophy, but because you have that association, you go back to Godhead.
Hmm.
It's as simple as that. So that's a very powerful, just Lord Prabhupada that's the way he started this movement too. He said, he didn't even know what he was doing when he came here. He was talking to all the devotees in New Vrindavan about the palace and building the palace. And he was talking to Kirtanananda, my spiritual master, of how the devotees did all these things. They made all these beautiful, like for his bathroom, he made like a marble latrine and a carved marble sink. I know you've probably seen it in the palace. It's got like rose quartz handles and leaded glass windows and all this stuff was done by the devotees. And they didn't know how to do anything when they first came. They didn't even know how to lay a cement block, but they learned all these things. And Prabhupada said, you learn all these things if you're sincere. If you want to serve Krishna, Krishna will tell you how to do it. You do it like this, and you'll be able to do it. You can do anything if Krishna empowers you to do something. And so they learned all these things, and Prabhupada said the same thing. He said, I didn't know how I was going to spread this movement. When I first came to Boston, I said, well, how are these people going to understand? He didn't know even what he was doing himself. But because he was sincere, Krishna told him how to do it, how to create these, how to preach and how to spread his message. And so that was why he was successful, because Krishna, gave him the knowledge of how to organize these things and these dirty, mangy hippies,
Hmm.
he turned them into devotees. And it's none of his doing though. I mean, all the parents of all these hippies, they were saying, they were appreciating Prabhupada's contribution to all these.
Hmm.
So my son or daughter, they're so nice now. They were appreciating Prabhupada. I said, I didn't do anything. If I have any credit, it's because I've just tried to accomplish. I just tried to carry out the instructions of my spiritual master. So he's not changing anything. He's just trying to execute the demands of his spiritual master, who told him to come to the West and do this. And so that's he was so humble that the only qualification that he had, he said, was just because I've tried to execute the order of my spiritual master. That's the only credit. Otherwise, he did nothing on his own. So we don't know how to do anything. We can't do anything. It's only by Krishna's mercy that we can actually do something. So that's the bottom line. But it can do like anything. You can cross mountains if you're lame. You can see if you're blind. You can do anything. So you can read the next paragraph here. Which one are we on here?
You skipped it. Go up. I can't see. It's the one above that where we're at.
This one here?
We're
How the Christian Consciousness Movement.
on the
Oh,
other
no,
hand.
we already read
Yeah.
that one. You read the
On the
one.
other hand, it's this one. On the other hand, a person who's not Krishna consciousness has no good qualities. He may be highly educated from the academic point of view, but in the actual field of his activities, he can be seen to be baser than the animals. Even though a person is highly educated academically, he cannot go beyond the sphere of mental activities, then he is sure to perform only material activities and thus remain impure. There are so many persons in the modern world who have been highly educated in materialistic universities, but it is seen that they cannot take up the movement of Krishna consciousness and develop the high qualities of the demigods. For example, a Krishna conscious boy, even if he is not very well educated by the university standard, can immediately give up all illicit sex life, gambling, meeting, and intoxication, whereas those who are not Krishna consciousness, although very highly educated, are often drunkards, meat eaters, sex mongers, and gamblers. These are practical proofs of how Krishna consciousness person becomes highly developed in good qualities, whereas a person who is not Krishna consciousness cannot do so. We experience that even a young boy in Krishna consciousness is unattached to cinemas, nightclubs, naked. What does it say? Yeah. Uh, what happened to what I was reading? I'm sorry. I don't know where I was. Oh, here. Where a person who's not can do so. We experience even young boy is not attached to cinemas, nightclubs, naked dances, restaurants, liquor shops, etc. He becomes completely freed. He saves his valuable time from being extravagantly spent in the way of smoking, drinking, attending the theater, and dancing.
Yeah. I mean that's just another you can experience a higher taste when you're even more than sex life. Sex life is the most pleasurable thing in the material world, but the demigods are the devotees in the spiritual world. They don't even care. They're just wondering why anybody would be attracted because they're enjoying so much.
Mhm.
Like there was a king, I think his name was Kulik Shekar or something like that. But he was a king, and so he had all kinds of experience with, women and everything. But because he became a devotee later on, he said, every time I think of sex life with a woman, I spit at the thought. I mean, that is amazing because, like nobody thinks like that. Unless you experience a higher taste, you just chant Hare Krishna and you just keep on chanting, chanting, chanting. Eventually, you get that higher taste, and then you can give up the lower taste. It says in the Bhagavad Gita, you can't refrain from sensual activities, but if you experience a higher taste, then you can give up the lower taste. So just like a child, you give him something better to do, and he won't be, causing so much mischief, by doing all these other things. Um, so that's a way to transcend the lower taste. We're all addicted in one way or another to all these sensual activities, but that's really not really pleasure. It's just temporary. Roy Rishabdev says, he was instructing all his sons. He had 100 sons. He said, a wise person doesn't take in the pleasure in the senses, which are have a beginning and an end. Real pleasure comes from austerity, of voluntarily giving up these things like eat, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. These are animal propensities, and even the animals are enjoying these things. And so, what difference does it make? It doesn't matter, human beings are trying so hard to enjoy, but they can only enjoy so much. When Prabhupada came to New Vrindavan, I was just reading Kirtanananda. He used to be named, Prabhupada named him Kitchenananda, he was such a good cook. And so he took, New Vrindavan has been famous for 50 years about how good the food was there, the prashadam. And so he made all kinds of like prasad for Prabhupada. He bought a big box, and so on the way from the airport to New Vrindavan, like a 90-minute drive. And so Hari Sari, who was narrating this pastime, he said that much to the delight of all the devotees in the car, Prabhupada had him spread out all of the prasadam, and he was eat a little bit of it, and then he encouraged people to take some. And Prabhupada said, this is this is the what I wanted. I wanted, all these human beings here in this planet, they have everything they need. If you just have a little bit of cow, you have a cow and some land, you can make wonderful food like this. And you should tell them how to make it, and it's so nice. You offer it to Krishna and just work for Krishna. But he said, he said, even though Kirtanananda made me a whole box full of prasadam, I can only take us so much. I can only have like a puri and some samosas, couple samosas. That's it. Because so even if you're even if you're wealthy, how much can you eat?
Yeah.
I mean, what is the use of, I mean, a sex on the street for a dog is the same as sex in a beautiful apartment somewhere. So what is, there's no advantage of either situation. So why would you try so hard to improve your standard of living when all you can eat is the same? And it doesn't matter how rich you are, you can only have the same thing. So it doesn't make any sense for people to work so hard to increase their sense gratification when all these things are available anyway. I mean, when Prabhupada he said, when I first came to America, I had no money and I was wondering where I didn't have any food, but I was still eating. And now I have all these nice young boys and girls that are serving me and giving me all this food. And I'm still eating the same thing. I'm not eating anymore, but Krishna is the one that is supplying all this food. I don't have to try for it. That's what it says in the Bible, you can just depend on Krishna for everything, and then Krishna will give you. So one who is not in Krishna conscious cannot sit silently even for a half an hour. The yoga system teaches that if you become silent, then you realize you are God. This system may be all right for materialistic persons, but how long they can keep themselves silent? Artificially, they may sit down for so-called meditation, but immediately after their yogic performance, they will engage themselves in such activities as illicit sex life, gambling, meat eating, and so many other nonsensical things. But a Krishna conscious person can gradually elevate himself without endeavoring for this so-called silent meditation. Simply because you engage in Krishna consciousness, he automatically gives up all this nonsense and develops a high character. One can develop the highest character by becoming a pure devotee of Krishna. The conclusion is that no one can have any good qualities if he's lacking in Krishna consciousness. See, that's what I tell people when I'm driving for Uber. I said, I invite them to the program. I
Mhm.
say, this is like a yoga place, but it's not like what you think of yoga when you think, I don't even know what people are thinking when they go do yoga. They think they sit silently and just meditate or whatever, and or they meditate on the void or a light or something, and they have different kinds of yoga, but they don't even know what they're doing. But when you're Krishna conscious, you focus on the name, and the name is not different from Krishna, so you're automatically engaged in Krishna consciousness, and it cleanses your heart. And then once you're cleansed, that's why Prabhupada said, in the beginning, this was the program. You chant, you come, you eat some food, and then you chant and go away.
Yep.
And then after a while, you give them a little knowledge when their hearts are a little purified.
Mhm.
That's how you engage people in this Christian consciousness. You give it a little bit. You didn't say right away. You didn't say, okay, you can't do this, don't do that. He didn't say anything. He just said, you come, you chant, you take some prasadam, and then go home. And then eventually, when people will become a little purified, they become attracted by the chanting, and it cleanses the heart and the mind, and so they can understand the higher things. That same guy that I used to he had a son that was interested in Pokemon too. He had like little Pokemon trading cards. But he and I used to go out and travel around, and we'd go to a restaurant or something, and we'd order a sandwich, and they didn't have any like vegetarian sandwiches at this one place, and so we asked for a cheese sandwich. And he said, "Well, I can't make that. It's not on the menu." And they called the manager. And the manager said, "Well, just make me a ham sandwich and just don't put the ham on it." You know.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and and he said, "No, no, I can't do that." So how are they going to understand the Srimad Bhagavatam if they can't even make a fucking cheese sandwich?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, so first of all, you have to like a little purification of the mind and heart, and then you have to give them a brain. You know,
Yeah.
otherwise they don't have the consciousness to understand even the simplest things. they don't know what button to push on the machine to make a cheese sandwich, so it just fries their brain out. But so anyway, that was Prabhupada's method. He didn't really give all these rules and regulations at the beginning. First, he engaged them in the fun stuff of. It said I tell people this is fun yoga, and I show them a video of everybody dancing in the kirtan center,
Yeah.
and it's actually fun. You know, there's three aspects of our yoga: chanting, that's like a drum circle. And I tell them about a drum circle, and I ask them if they know what a drum circle is, and they say no. And I say, "Well, you're young, you don't know. I'm old. It's a hippie thing, drum circles. So
Yeah.
it's a bunch of hippies sitting around banging on a drum in a circle, then making too much noise and smoking weed." And I said, "We do that, except we don't smoke weed. We don't have to because we're already having fun."
Yeah.
So, so like, and then chanting, dancing, and feasting. I mean, who doesn't like that? And it's all free. So that's the way I invite people to our yoga system. And who wouldn't come? He said they must come. Prabhupada said they must come, and if they come, eventually they'll become purified to the point where they'll understand a little bit of philosophy.
Well, I'm gonna keep this in mind because I have friends of mine that I'm trying to like. I mean, I find myself not being able to not talk about it, encourage people to check it out, and I don't often know what to say.
Yeah,
And I,
I mean, you don't even have to say much and just say, "Come on, it's really fun." Just come and have some
yeah, come
food.
hang out, chant, have some food. I mean, because really, that's what got me. I mean, that's what I did. I just went to a temple one day with some people who would go, some
Yeah,
students.
I didn't
I
even
didn't know
know what
about
Krishna
it.
consciousness was. I was crazy when I first came to. I was just a little interested um, in the lifestyle. I just um, I was looking for some kind of like, I was interested in Krishna consciousness because um, I didn't even know who Krishna was, but I knew these devotees that had different places all over the world, and I wanted to go and visit it, even though I was crazy. My heart was in the right place, and I wanted to check it out. And so I asked my father, I asked my psychologist. I was so crazy. I was like taking psychoactive drugs, and I asked my psychologist, like, I want to go and visit this place, in West Virginia. And he said, no, no, I don't think that's a good idea. That you keep you on medication here, under observation. And I said, I don't care. I got pissed
Oh
because
wow.
he was taking away the last shred of my identity.
Mm.
And I just said, I don't care what you say. I'm going anyway. And I like walked out and slammed the door and I never came back. And I went to New Vrindavan. So even though I was crazy, my heart was in the right place. But I was attracted by it because everything that the devotees, I was just thinking about the devotees, and it just made sense to me. The whole lifestyle and everything made sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me too, and it's harder for me to
Yeah,
like
I was like a young
when I'm
man. I
with
was only
people
like,
who don't get it, I'm having a hard time like outside of this relating to people, and it's getting harder. And what
harder as far as like trying to relate to them about Krishna consciousness. You mean?
well, yeah, it's just harder to like, because like a lot of my friends that I know, like they're still stuck on a lot of vices, and a lot of them just constantly smoke and vape. And I'm like, I get really annoyed like around that. I just start seeing how like it makes them just kind of their minds are going, and I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like,
Right. Yeah, it's hard to relate to people. When I first started becoming interested in Krishna consciousness, I would go to the bars, back in the 70s, and I would just sometimes I would still go to the bars and I would listen to music and I'd have like a 7 Up or something. I wouldn't even drink and I wouldn't even like want to go and carouse with girls or anything. Even though I was a young man, I was like in my early 20s, but I didn't have any interest in that. You just like lose interest and you don't want to. You just don't want to do it anymore
yeah.
because you got a higher taste now. You have like a you're don't not attracted to all that stuff, you know.
No, that's where I'm at. Yeah. But I do
And
go,
so
Chick,
that's
I
where you
do
got to
gotta
get
go.
rid of.
I have to go. Speaking of things I don't want to do, I have to go
Okay, sure.
to
Yeah,
band
I'm out of
practice.
time
But
anyway. It's like it's 6:54, so
yeah,
we're supposed to like cut it off at, in between
yeah.
45 and 7 o'clock. So thank you for sharing, and we'll see you probably next Tuesday, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. This Tuesday. All right. Hare Bol, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.